Bodies of 4 hostages taken during the October the 7th attacks have been handed over by Hamas to the Red Cross. Warning, this report contains images of the coffins of the hostages that some viewers might find distressing. Well, the coffins were carried by Hamas militants before being draped in white sheets and transferred into waiting Red Cross vans. They include the bodies of the youngest hostage, Kfir Bibas, who was 9 months old when he was kidnapped from Kibbutz near Oz, along with his 4-year-old brother Ariel and mother Shiri. Their father Yarden was freed earlier this month. The 4th body to be released is that of 84-year-old journalist Oded Lifshitz. He was one of the oldest people to be kidnapped following the October the 7th attacks. Let's bring in our international correspondent, Diana Magnay. Diana, we've been discussing this all morning. It was always going to be a deeply, deeply somber day. Seeing it unfold really brings that home.
Yes, the first of the bodies of the hostages who didn't make it to be returned back to Israel, and also such a painful moment because the Bibas family had become symbols, really, of the horrors of October the 7th and the pain that the Israeli nation have experienced ever since. Those images of 2 little red-headed boys. Kfir was only 8 months old when he was taken. His brother Ariel was 4. They would have been 5 and 2 now. And their mother Shiri, there was video of their capture in kibbutz near Oz, where she was holding her little boys in a blanket, obviously terrified. You know, these images have stayed in the minds of Israelis, scarred them deeply, and now to know that the bodies will finally be returning home, incredibly difficult too for Yarden, their father, who was released on February the 1st, who was held in custody, even though Hamas say that they offered to return the remains of his wife and children and he himself on compassionate grounds quite early on in the war. They said that the family, Shiri and her 2 sons, were killed by an Israeli airstrike, and that's certainly the message that they're trying to put out today in what is a sort of propaganda affair on the stage where they had the coffins. They had a picture of Benjamin Netanyahu dressed as the devil, saying essentially that the responsibility for the Bibas family's deaths were on his conscience. Of course, it was Hamas who committed the atrocity of October the 7th in the first place. And Oded Lifshitz, as you say, 84 years old, one of the oldest hostages, who was taken with his wife, also from kibbutz near Oz. He was a founding member of the kibbutz. He also worked for a long time to try and help Palestinians in Gaza, to bring out the sick from Gaza who needed medical care, and to provide that for them in Israeli hospitals. He spoke Arabic, as did his wife. She, if you may remember, was released quite early on in the war, 2 weeks in, and there was that memorable footage where she shook the hand of her Hamas captor and said shalom, wishing him peace. It really goes to show you the kind of people that they were. So an incredibly sad day for her too, but at least some finality once the IDF has confirmed through DNA and through other ways of identifying the remains that these are who Hamas says they are, a way of bringing finality at least and allowing Israelis at the moment to give them a proper burial at last back on home ground.
I mean, Diana, clearly the main part of today and this story is the tragedy and the sadness of seeing these Red Cross vans carry those coffins of the hostages back. Equally, who are the individuals we're also looking at, the armed, masked individuals? Those are Hamas militants, presumably.
Yes, Hamas militants, members of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, who are in the gold and black. Hamas wear the green, and then also Kataib Mujahideen, the Mujahideen brigades, who the Bibas family were originally held by. They also participated in October the 7th. And so we don't, you know, they are one of the smaller militant groups operating in the Gaza Strip, also in the West Bank, in the Jenin refugee camp, where Israel has been conducting a fierce military operation ever since the ceasefire was enacted. But yes, the hostages have been held by various militant groups, sort of underneath the Hamas umbrella in the Gaza Strip all of this time. But Hamas has been really the spokesman for all of them. And they sent a message today saying essentially that the occupation government, as they call them, the Israeli government, have responsibility for the deaths of these four, that it was Israeli airstrikes that killed them alongside 17,000 other Palestinian children. And that should be remembered. And also, you won't have seen, but I've been watching the live feed of those pictures. And on the stage where the coffins were laid, they had missiles on which were written in English, "These are US bombs which killed them." You know, this is a real moment for Hamas to drive the message home that Israel's bombardment with US bombs is responsible for the hostages' deaths. Let us not forget it was Hamas who caused all of this pain for Israel and for Palestinians in Gaza by perpetrating the horrors of October the 7th. But yes, a moment for them also to really show strength. That's why you see them carrying huge rocket launchers in the crowd. You see them parading bits of military kit, which is presumably Israeli military kit that they've captured. You see them on vehicles with their AK-47s, their Kalashnikovs, leading the Red Cross to the transfer over to the Israeli Defense Forces. So it is a message to Israel that despite the 16 months of bombardment when Benjamin Netanyahu swore that he would get rid of Hamas, that they are not defeated. A very difficult moment, seeing as we are coming to the end of phase one of the ceasefire deal. Phase two will see the release of the remaining Israeli hostages who are still alive, who are younger men and IDF soldiers. And it is also meant to see the elimination of Hamas as a military and political force within the Gaza Strip, which is clearly going to be very difficult if you look at those pictures now, and is what Egyptian and Qatari mediators are working very, very hard to try and secure some